Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for your patience this morning. Before we jump into our items for today, we'll do our usual overview of where we are at public safety. Homicides are down 23% thus far this year compared to last year, which of course we know was an historic reduction. I want to uplift that. We had 9 homicides in the month of February, and to our records, that's the first time since 2014 that we've had a single-digit homicide month, but we still have a long, long way to go. Non-fatal shootings are down 41%, robberies are down 16%, and auto thefts are down 53% from last year until this one. We have several announcements today, so please bear with us as we work through each of them before we get to your questions. First and foremost, today we'll be releasing the framework for a comprehensive permit reform package. I'm joined today by Deputy Mayor Williams and our City Administrator Faith Leach, she's in the back, who were instrumental in putting together this report and recommendations for reform. I'm also glad to be joined by my partners in the Council President and the Comptroller. Their partnership shows that this isn't all of government is really aligned in our belief in this reform package. As I frequently talk about, Baltimore is in the midst of a renaissance. And despite all of the uncertainty and insanity happening at the federal level, we still have historic amounts of investment pouring into the city and have laid out a vision to eliminate vacant housing in Baltimore once and for all over the next 15 years. In order to maximize that potential, we need to ensure that city government is an asset and not a hindrance. We know that the permits, inspections, and approval process is often complex, difficult to navigate, and often needlessly has delays projects that we want to see move forward quickly and successfully in our city. Today, we're announcing a framework for the modernization and streamlining that we will be pursuing. Over the next several days and weeks, our office will issue a comprehensive report that dives deep into the background of the changes outlined today and expand on how it is going to help make Baltimore one of the most efficient cities in America for development. We're going to do that while maintaining our commitment to safety and community interests, particularly in those neighborhoods that have faced intentional historic disinvestment. We are in a housing crisis in our country, and we have the roadmap to end vacancies in our city. And this is going to help us speed up the work and make it easier for everyone, from individuals to community developers to major development firms, to get involved in helping the city achieve its full potential. To do that, we're going to be simply tackling every portion of the system and simply make it work better, and in some cases make it work at all. Many of these reforms are already in the works, and through many more, we will take significant work in partnership to help make them a reality. First, we are creating a Director of Permitting and Development Services to have direct authority to coordinate across agencies, eliminate bottlenecks, and ensure accountability in our development and permit processes. And for the first time, Baltimore will have a single point of leadership focused on making our development processes work efficiently while maintaining the necessary oversight. Next, we're establishing the Be More Fast Advisory Group, which will bring together a diverse group of developers, contractors, architects, lenders, community members, and small business representatives to provide the administration with real insight and ensure the reforms we're outlining here today translates into real improvement. Next, we have identified 4 areas where we're launching reforms, and I won't read through all of the recommendations, but I want to give a quick picture that we're focused on. 1, public engagement and access. We're expanding our successful permits call center, which has already raised answer rates from 10% to 98%. We'll make development services accessible to all communities with Spanish language resources. We'll establish virtual office hours to offer direct access to technical staff on permits and development requirements. And finally, we'll push standard permit review times and implement accountability measures to ensure consistency in delivering those. Second, offering developer and builder support by doing things like launching a new comprehensive online portal for streamlined application processing, allowing qualified professionals to expedite routine approvals with self-certification and third-party review, simplifying requirements for working in the public right of way, and setting up a major projects coordination committee to support complex development projects. Third, will support small businesses and emerging developers by enhancing technical assistance for minority and women-owned businesses, providing pre-approved plans and documents to help reduce costs and streamline typical renovation projects, better aligning city and state processes and business licenses to help reduce duplication. And fourth and finally, we improve city operations and our own capacity by doing a comprehensive staffing assessment to ensuring adequate resources across all agencies that are involved in development work, expanding our permit stat work to ensure data-driven performance, proactively clearing liens on city-acquired properties, and embedding the Office of the Zoning Administrator within the Department of Planning to better align their work. This is a major initiative and is going to positively impact so many people who love this city and want to do good work in it. Baltimore is at an all-time moment of opportunity, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we seize that moment. Quickly shifting gears, however, I'm also joined today by our Transportation Director, Veronica Macbeth, along with Deputy Director of Operations, Tavon Braxton, Safety Chief, Aretha Mayfield, and ATVES Director, Philip Millerson, to announce the start of 24-hour parking enforcement in Baltimore. Beginning March the 10th, 2025, DOT will begin 24-hour parking enforcement operations. The 24-hour enforcement plan will help to improve parking compliance, as overnight enforcement will allow agents to cite habitual offenders, including commercial vehicles parked illegally in residential areas, residential permitting parking violations, scofflaw offenders, and various traffic management issues. That means cars can and will now be towed 24 hours a day. Towable offenses such as abandoned vehicles can also be cited, as tow truck and impound resources will be available overnight as well. Our agents will also be cross-trained to enforce all types of violations for a more effective and responsive enforcement program. Residents are encouraged to report parking issues to 311 either by phone or by online service requests on the app. In addition to starting 24-hour parking enforcement, we also want to announce that the JFX speed enforcement cameras will soon be moved to 2 new locations along the expressway. Since July 2022, there have been 2 cameras along the JFX, although we want there to be more. The state hasn't approved those yet. These cameras will soon be moved to new locations along the expressway, including northbound JFX at Smith Avenue and the southbound JFX Expressway at West North Avenue. Automated speed enforcement citations from these new camera locations will be issued to violators starting Monday, March the 24th. We will give a grace period of 15 days to start to alert murderers of the new camera locations and to provide time for drivers to modify their behavior before enforcement begins. Warning signs are posted along 83, and digital speed sentry signs have also been installed so that drivers receive feedback of their speeds in real time. This is also the point where I'll say again, anyone that speeds on 83 is putting themselves and other people in danger, because we know how many accidents have happened there historically. 83 speed cameras operate 24/7, 365, and since the start of the program, over 585,000 speed citations have been issued. That's really 500,000 cars not doing what they're supposed to do on 83, making our streets less safe. So the message is clear: slow your roll, or you will get a ticket. Very simply. Lastly, I want to take a moment of personal privilege. Where is he? Come on. Don't hide in the back. As you all know, my Chief of Staff, Marvin James, has announced that at the end of next month, he'll be stepping down after 2 years in one of the hardest jobs in city government, 5 years in City Hall, but really being a lifetime person working for me on campaigns and other things. So he's been here through it all. Marvin's been a great friend, a big confidant. He's the person that I argue with the most on staff. I want to make sure that that's very clear to everybody. But you can't really understate what a giant Marvin is, despite, as I read today, Emily, his svelte nature. What a giant he is. What a giant he is in city government, in our community. And though he's leaving city government, he won't be leaving us or Baltimore. But really wanted to thank him for always showing up for our residents and having all of us be reminded that we work for the people that live out in our communities each and every day. Thank you, Marvin. You can find him preaching sometime soon, I'm sure. All right. With that, we'll go into questions.
Let's start with the sun.
And before we do that, can someone make sure that the heat is off in the back? It's hot in here.
Yes, Carson Swift with the Baltimore Sun. I was just wondering if you have any update on the city's lawsuit against the Trump administration over the rolling back of DEI mandates.
I do not.
Go to the WPL. I don't.
They sit next to each other.
How you doing, Mr. Scott? When we were at the event last week at the middle school for CIAA, you were asked about, and I know that we've talked about it before, you cited cities like Philadelphia, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and New York when it comes to existing sales tax. Was there any sort of developments that have happened over the past week as far as that goes, where you would be able to be in a position to help the city out as far as acquiring the sales taxes? You pointed out it's not the same here as it is other places.
No, and thank you. We've been advocating for this since 2023. I think the comptroller and I talked about this probably even before that in 2022. No change as of yet, but we're going to continue to advocate and just note that this is about us being on equal footing of basically every major city in the country, but also us doing things that we know we need to do, like reduce property tax burden in our city.
WBLTV?
Yeah, Tyler.
Questions on the Inspector General's report on DPW that came out this morning.
Yes, sir.
First question is about one of the sections talks about a DPW HR manager who spent $2,500 surveying an employee after a workers' comp situation. The Inspector General notes that that was a potential misuse of taxpayer money, that it was could be interpreted as retaliatory, and that it could encroach on the privacy of that individual. That person is listed as a current employee. What disciplinary actions will be taken against that?
So I think that what I'll say is, Tyler, we take all of those things very seriously. We appreciate the Inspector General for her very thorough report. I know that the director, the city administrator, all of my administration have been working alongside her to make sure that she was able to do her work and her investigation without any hindrance from any person. And we've addressed many of the concerns listed before in this report, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'll talk in a second about the investment that we've made into DPW. But we know that the director and his team was sent here to make sure that we root out all of those things. I can't openly tell you about what happens in the HR process, because we have to follow rules and regulations and things that were collectively bargained with our union counterparts. And when we're holding people accountable, there's metrics for that. But just know any and everybody who does things that are out of line with what we set forth and out of line of what we should be doing as a city, they'll be held accountable to the most strenuous extent that they can be.
And this is for either of you, but the report also notes that the former bureau head, who was Craig Jeter, who has since left that position, confirmed that while employees can't be going through these conditions, speaking of the heat conditions, quote, when employees are disgruntled in a union shop environment, this is what you get. He went on to state that they are being held accountable for accidents, not wearing PPE, and abusing equipment, and stated, quote, the workers can be replaced. What's your response to that?
I don't respond to people who are no longer here. They're no longer here because they don't meet the standards of what we want from DPW. And that's why we move on from people who don't share those values and don't understand that our workers are some of the most hardworking and dedicated people who exist in the city, who do things that most people would not do. And that's why we move on from folks who have that kind of mindset, and we bring in folks who understand the value of our workers and what they mean to our city, but most importantly to our residents.
He was the bureau head for several years.
He's no longer there, and he wasn't several years.
60 months.
Yeah.
Go back to the back.
Just following up on one small thing I noticed in that report, there was a talk about $82,000 spent to order heated jackets that only have like a 2-hour battery life. I mean, was that a mistake in your eyes? And, you know, is that something the city is going to try to rectify?
It should be longer than 2 hours. I'll just say that. And I know the director might have a direct answer to that, so I'll let him come up. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll look into that request exactly, but at the same time, we did a survey afterward, after receiving that point. And if you look at the report, our response, the survey is very clear, and our response is clear in terms of that is over 55%, I think, or 52% of the survey that we've done about the jackets itself were positive reviews from the employees, the entire bureau.
You know, do you think that enough progress has been made? The IG's report says that progress has been made, but do you feel like, you know, this is happening fast enough and it's inadequate?
I think that we've made tremendous progress, and I think I always have to level set us all, Emily, in the fact that we're talking about an agency that had not been invested in at all, right? We're talking about facilities and vehicles, right? When you think about the fact that the director had to remind me of this, that the fleet that we have now, after the investment that I decided to make into DPW, quite frankly, before we had the reports from the IG, is the most modern fleet that they've ever had. We've never been a city that's invested in particular into those folks in solid waste. And I'll just give you some of the stuff that they're doing, right? He's advancing significant reforms in solid waste, tackling a lot of those longstanding challenges to improve the culture, workplace safety. You can see the capital investment that we're making into it. There's already a multifaceted plan that's been executed to ensure that workers are supported, but also trained and equipped with the stuff that they need to not just work, but really thrive in the environment that they have to work in every day. And there's still going to be a lot more improvements that have to come. They've implemented new safety protocols to protect employees from heat illness plans, cold stress prevention plan, proposed extreme weather standard operation procedures, things that did not exist before. And we have a long way to go, but we're investing in the people, not just from a financial standpoint, not just from buildings and vehicles and equipment, but also the human element, the human nature of it, something that was long overdue. And we've known like the engagement. I've been there with the director as he's engaged the whole solid waste, and hearing and talking with many of them myself. They're very appreciative, but still we all know we have a long way to go, and we're just not going to stop. We're going to continue to work on that each and every day, and we'll make sure that we get to the end.
One more beat. Any question, please? Back to WMAR, Fox, or WJC. Anybody? Or go back to.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just wanted to see if you watched the president's congressional speech last night, got any reaction to that?
My grandmother said if you watch trash and listen to trash, you'll start to think like trash. So I did not watch it. I decided to watch something else. But what I will say is that I hope that people realize what's happening before their own eyes. And I say that Congressman Green did what the entire, and him and my good friend Congressman Jasmine from Crockett from Texas did after he was put out, did what every Democrat should have done, walked out. That's what they should have done. And that should be a message really not just to the country, but really to the leadership of the Democratic Party that the time to play the old game of just the status quo and having decorum, that's over. What's happening before our very own eyes each and every day is the destruction of American democracy. Every single day, in every moment that they think that we can fight that with the old way is a moment that the democracy gets turned down even further. There should have been no one in there once that man was thrown out, right? Because I thought it was okay for people to yell at the president when they're talking. I've seen it happen when, Congresswoman Green was shouting and screaming all kind of things. I remember them saying that President Obama was the president of these United States was a liar when he was talking, and those people were not thrown out. This is what we're talking about here. We are becoming a laughing stock to countries. You can see our neighbors in Canada poking fun of us each and every day because folks are just sitting there and allowing this to happen. And people need to put their big boy and big girl pants on and fight back in the right way. And to the party itself, it's time for them to think outside of the box and not look to themselves only for those in D.C. for leadership. They are mayors across the country. They are council people across the country. They are all these other Democratic officials across the country who are closer to the people, who are willing to step up and serve and help shape what the party should do to fight the degradation of our democracy. And we just hope that they listen and hear that.
Quick follow-up. So, one, what were your comments on the raw sewage backups that have been caused by the city and the settlement that was approved today?
Well, I'll just say, I won't say anything that I didn't say already today at BOE, Tally, that we're going to continue to work on that. We all know that we've made, and you can use the film from earlier to talk about the improvements that we've made, and we have a long way to go. But because we're currently negotiating settlement around how we're going to be moving that program forward, I can't go into further detail.
Okay, and a quick follow there. I mean, I know DPW's report was, I think, very comprehensive, taking item by item about how they're trying to fix things. But still, having read about in this DPW report that the city's response to injuries was found to be punitive, that there were no written DPW standards for injuries, that the city health clinic where these workers were referred were perhaps not performing physical evaluations, that there were no performance evaluations for these employees, that there was no spotter training despite these workers being asked to do spotters, and obviously that worker dying that way. Were you frustrated reading that? What was your response to reading?
Well, I think that frustrated doesn't even get at the word, right? I think, but for me, I wasn't surprised. Again, for me, understanding the DPW is in 2 consent decrees, right? So it's not like we don't know that there were issues, but you're talking about decades of disinvestment and issues. When I talk to workers, when I myself have been out, and I think you and I've talked about this before, Tali, the whole thing around Bowley's Lane and the conditions at the yard and us putting money into investing in a new system literally came because I visited the yard with the employees and heard from them direct and spent time with them out on their routes, right? We know that this talks about all the things that we talk about consistently at BOE. We're talking about historic levels of disinvestment and not having systems and practices in place. And that's why we have the leadership, and that's why we've been even proactively starting to work on these things. But I'm not going to be happy until the work is complete. But I also know that this is not overnight work. This is not a one media cycle work. This is years. And when you're talking about the level and the size of agency like DPW and the years of disinvestment and not having these things, you're talking about a significant amount of time and investment that it's going to take from a financial and hours spent with people time to have those things resolved. And that's the commitment that we're going to continue to do.
Last question, Naveed.
At the beginning of the year, you guys sent that letter that was threatening jail time over what the Trump administration was doing around immigration. Have you heard any follow-up from that?
Well, we never got the letter to start with. We saw the letter the same way you saw the letter, Lisa, but we haven't heard, and we're going to continue to operate as we have. As I always say, we know that Baltimore is a little different than most cities because we don't run the jail, and that's where their focus mainly is on the jail. But here in Baltimore, as long as folks are here working with their families, being active, positive people of the community, that's all we care about. We don't care about where folks come from. I just have to remind people, because there's a certain section of people that need to be reminded that this country was founded by immigrants. It was built on the backs of black labor consistently. Baltimore itself, outside of New York at one point, was the second biggest entry ports to immigrants in this country, right? This is the reason why we have a neighborhood called Little Italy in Greektown. And who are we to now say, just because of folks are coming from different places, that we're going to push back on that. We're not going to do that. We're going to hold people who commit crimes and things responsible no matter where they come from. I don't care if they come from South Africa. I don't care if they come from wherever, Mexico. But when folks are here working, being a part of our community, showing up every day, putting in the work, running businesses, doing great things in the community, that's what we shouldn't be focused on those people.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.